Okay, so we see QR codes everywhere, right? I mean, literally everywhere these days. But
Yeah.
honestly, they're kind of boring, right? Like, they're just these
Huh.
black and white squares. But get this.
Right.
What if I told you they could be like, exciting, beautiful even?
Oh, yeah.
That's what we're diving into today, art QR
Oh,
codes.
very cool.
Based on this interview we have with a designer and a bunch of other research we did,
Uh,
like, how can something technical become
hmm.
a piece of art?
Well, it is really interesting when you think about it, like this blend of the practical and the creative.
Right.
So, we all know a QR code when we see it, those black and white squares, but
Yeah.
imagine that, but it's like a miniature painting,
Yeah.
It's a work of art. That's what an art QR code is. It's still totally functional. You can still scan it, but it's also beautiful.
Exactly. And we have this great interview with this designer, Axe, who made this really cool art QR code for this web designer who's based in Italy. And the thing is, the client, she wanted something unique, right? Something that was more than just, here's a link to my Instagram, you know?
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
It had to be like, wow, and really reflect her style.
Yeah, that makes sense. You want to stand out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the whole point of branding, isn't it? To make a statement and be memorable.
Yeah, totally. And Axe was really clever about it. Like, she
Yeah.
used all these Italian, like, architectural elements in the design of the code itself.
Oh, cool. Like what kind of things?
Like terracotta rooftops, you know?
Oh, nice.
Narrow streets, those kinds of charming little details all woven into the QR code.
Wow.
It's like you're scanning a mini Italy.
That's really creative. I love how it connects the design to the client's location.
Yeah.
It's like a visual story, right?
Exactly. It's not just like a random code, it's
Yeah.
an extension of her brand, her identity.
Yeah, it shows how these art QR codes can be powerful storytelling tools. And it's not just, like you said, a random code.
Right, but the thing is, QR codes are tricky, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you mess with the design too much, they
Yeah.
stop working.
They can, yeah.
Axe was constantly like tweaking colors, contrast, even the placement of the little elements so that it would scan correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It's a serious balancing act. She called herself like a QR code detective. Haha.
That's funny. But it makes sense. You need that attention to detail.
You do.
It reminds me, like, designing an art QR code, it's almost like you need specialized software, right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
need something that lets you change the visual stuff without ruining the actual code.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you're coding and painting at the same time.
And this attention to detail, it didn't stop with just the QR code. It was like across all sorts of branded materials.
Oh, really? Like what?
They put it on stickers, tote bags,
Yeah. Yeah.
posters.
Cool.
Even, get this, a wine label.
By wine label.
I know.
Wait, for a web designer.
For a web designer, I know.
That's an interesting choice.
Kind of a bold move, right?
No, like, is it going to be confusing? Will people get that she's a web designer, not, like, selling wine?
I mean, that's a good question, but here's the thinking behind it.
Okay.
They wanted to create a whole brand experience, right?
Mm.
Not just a logo and a website, but like, if her work was a wine, what would it be like?
Ah, so it's a metaphor.
Exactly.
Clever but risky.
Well, they even wrote this little message on the label connecting fine wine with, a great website.
Oh, really? What does it say?
Something like, just as a fine wine needs patience and balance, a successful business needs, a solid foundation, a modern, effective website.
Okay, I see.
And then, of course, the QR code on the label, boom, takes you right to her portfolio.
So it's all about creating that seamless experience.
Yeah.
I get it, but, it does seem a little abstract. Do you think people will really make that connection?
I think it really depends on who she's trying to reach. Like, if they're into design and, appreciate subtle messaging, it could be super effective.
Yeah.
It's definitely memorable.
It is. It definitely gets you thinking, which is what good branding should do. It definitely sparks a conversation, which I think is important when you think about branding. Like, you want people to talk about it. And this whole example with the wine label, it really makes you think about the bigger picture of what our QR codes can do.
Yeah.
It's not just about slapping a link on something. It's like they can tell a story, add to the brand, even become a piece of art themselves.
I'm really starting to see that.
It's about creating a whole feeling, not just, a quick scan.
Totally. And Axe said this isn't just for like web designers or whatever. Any small business can use them on packaging or, marketers can use them in their campaigns. Like, imagine a concert poster with an art QR code that looks like, I don't know, a guitar or a microphone.
Oh, cool.
She even mentioned using them in art exhibitions.
Now that's really interesting. Can you imagine? Like you're walking through a gallery, and instead of those little labels next to the paintings, you scan a code,
Yeah.
and boom, you get a video of the artist talking about their work. Or you can zoom in on all these high-res details,
Wow, that would be so cool.
or even buy the art
Right.
right there on the spot.
That would be amazing. It would make art so much more accessible, you know?
Right. Not everyone's comfortable, like, asking questions in a gallery, but with the QR code, you're in control. You can engage however you want.
It's like taking a self-guided tour of the art world,
Exactly.
but with like so much more depth. It's crazy how technology can be used like that to make the experience better.
Well, I don't know if I'd say technology is making the art experience better. I think art and technology have always been connected, you know?
Okay.
Like, think about the printing press, photography, all these huge leaps forward were all about technology changing how we make and experience art. So art QR codes are just another tool.
I see your point. It's not like replacing the art, it's more like working with it.
Exactly.
But speaking of technology, how do you actually create these things? I mean, can you just like stick a pretty design over a normal QR code?
Oh, no, no, no. It's definitely not that simple. Remember how Axe talked about those technical challenges? There's a whole bunch of special software out there just for making art QR codes. You can use them to play around with all the different parts of the code,
Mm-hmm.
like the colors, the shapes, the patterns, without, breaking the code itself.
So you can like change the density of the code, the size of the little squares, even put logos and images in there.
Exactly. It's like learning a secret language, blending art and code together.
And it sounds like you need to understand both sides to really nail it.
Oh, absolutely. You have to be thinking about how it looks and how it works at the same time. It's no wonder she called herself a code detective.
You really have to admire the skill it takes. It's not just about making a pretty picture, it's got to work on so many levels.
And that's where the real creativity comes in. It's not just swapping out black and white for something prettier.
Yeah.
It's like each QR code has its own pattern, right? And you can use that pattern to create all sorts of designs.
So you could have one that looks like, I don't know, a galaxy or a field of flowers.
Exactly. The possibilities are endless.
Wow. But even with all this talk about art and design, we can't forget these things are supposed to, do something, take you somewhere, give you information, that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. You can't get carried away and forget the whole point of the QR code. It's got to scan, and it's got to take you to the right place, or else what's the point, right? It'd be like having this beautiful door that doesn't even open.
So how do you know it's going to work? Is there some way to test it out?
For sure. Just like with any design project, you got to try things out, see what works, see what doesn't, test the code on different phones and different lighting and make sure it scans every single time. You got to think about where it's going to be used too. Like if it's on a tiny sticker, you want to be sure the design is still clear enough to scan, even when it's small.
It's like there's a lot more to it than just the visuals.
That's why you got to understand both the art side and the tech side.
Yeah.
It's really interesting how they come together.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just think of QR codes as like a tool, something practical and almost invisible, But what if we looked at them differently? Like, what if they were a way to be creative, to tell a story, even to make a statement?
That's exactly what art QR codes are all about. They're like taking this simple tech tool and turning it into something artistic, you know? And the exciting part is we're just getting started, I think. As technology gets better and more people are used to using QR codes, who knows what we'll see.
It's like opening up a whole new world of possibilities. And Axe even said something like, if you want people to remember your brand, an art QR code is the way to do it.
It's like changing the way we think about them. Instead of just a boring square, it's something that can be fun to look at, even beautiful.
It really makes you think about those little squares differently, huh?
It does, doesn't it? It's like instead of just, grabbing your phone and scanning without even thinking,
Yeah.
you actually stop and look at the code. Appreciate the little details, the design, like you might with a painting or a sculpture.
And maybe you even discover something new, learn something you didn't expect, or like connect with the artist who made it.
Right. It's like a reminder that even in these like everyday things, there's beauty and creativity all around us. Sometimes you just got to look a little closer.
So next time you see a QR code, don't just scan it without thinking. Really take a look.
You might be surprised. Maybe you'll see something about a different culture or a company style, or even get a message from the artist right there on your phone.
It's like Axe said, an art QR code is like a cool business card that people actually want to look at.
Exactly.
And she's totally right.
It's such a simple idea, but it could totally change how we interact with, companies, information, even art itself. It's like, even with all this technology, there's still room for that human touch, for beauty, for creativity.
It's all about balance, isn't it? Finding that sweet spot where tech makes our lives better but doesn't take over, where function and beauty work together to make something really special.
Right. And that's what makes this whole topic so interesting. It's not just about QR codes. It's about how we think about design, about tech, about the world around us. It's about seeing the potential for something amazing, even in the everyday things.
So remember that next time you grab your phone to scan a code, it might just be a work of art in disguise. Take a closer look, you might be surprised by what you find.